Hey guys, it's me, it's your girl Jasmine Townsend, and I am here for what I'm calling Sunday school stories. Stories on a Sunday, because I'm going to tell you where it came from. So last year, 2022, I did the Bible in a Year plan, and basically, it confirmed some of the things that I thought, had happened in certain things, Adam and Eve, all the things, Moses, Noah, Jonah, those kind of stories. And some stories I had completely forgot that they were in the Bible. Now, the story in specific that I'm referring to is Lot, L-O-T, Lot. And when I think of Lot, I just think of how most people we know, well, I'm not even gonna say most people, some people just kind of know the basics, the summary of the story. But I feel like the message and the true understanding of the story comes when you get into the meat and potatoes, not just, the main course. So of course, like for me with Lot, I thought of, God told them to run, Lot and his wife, I can't even tell you her name. And basically just he told them to run, she turned around, she turned into a pillar of salt. Now, for me, it makes me question like, why were they running? Like why didn't God just destroy them? Like what was so different about them? So so that's what gave me this idea about doing Sunday school stories that we know that they're there, some of us, and some of us it's just like it's like that distant memory where you know what happened, but you can't exactly tell you what led up to it happening. So that's kind of where this stemmed from. Now, what made me do it on a Sunday is because basically when I think of the stories of the Bible, Adam and Eve, Moses, Noah, all the stories that we read in the Bible, when did you hear about them? For some of us, it was when we were kids growing up in the church going to Sunday school, because the older we got, the more in debt people went into with the stories. So for me, like I was raised in a Baptist church. So they went over the stories when I was a kid. When I went to middle school, we started diving into, well, how can I apply that story that happened years ago to me today? And then when I got to high school, I was teaching other little kids. So for me, that's what I thought of when I thought of Sunday school. I thought of someone, kind of just telling me the gist of the story, kind of going over details where I can find the scripture myself and then do my own research and then just, you know, finding out what does that mean for my life today. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to tell you what happens in the story. I'm going to give you the scriptures of where I'm reading it from. And because I'm not going to read the whole story, but I am going to talk about key verses in the story. Now, speaking of key verses, I'm going to be using three main versions. So I usually, without a shadow of a doubt, if I'm reading a verse, it's coming from one of these three versions. So I read from the Message version, I read from New King James, and I also have the Tony Evans Study Bible. So I'll potentially might be reading from that one as well. So yeah, so that's the history behind why I decided to do this. So it makes you wonder, like, well, Jazz, if you're going to be doing this each week, where are you going to start? I'm starting in the beginning, starting in Genesis, but not the very beginning of Genesis. I'm going to skip a few chapters because we already know, chapter 1, God created heaven and earth, 6 days, rested on the seventh. We know chapter 2 is all about God making Eve, like official details on what happened on day 6. And then of course we know chapter 3 is all about the fall and the punishment. And then we get to chapter 4 and we learn about Cain and Abel. That's where we are today. Cain and Abel. Because most people know, spoiler alert, one of them dies, one of them kills the one that dies. So, but let's dive more into it. Let's dive more what it led up to it, and let's dive into how can we grow from it as people today. All right, Genesis chapter 4. So many people may know this, but God commanded Adam and Eve to procreate, fill the earth, and subdue it. I want to use the right word. Hold on. Maybe it's chapter 1 when he said it. Ah, it is. So in chapter 1, God said to man, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Yeah, okay. That was New King James, by the way. That was verse 28. And so basically, that's what they did. They multiplied, they were fruitful. And that's when Cain and Abel came. Abel was the oldest, typical sibling. Correction. Cain was the oldest. I also have notes because, it can't just be coming up and not knowing what I'm talking about. But so Cain was the oldest, and what did he do? He was a gardener in retrospect. He was the one that did the crops and the produce, whereas now some versions call him a farmer, but in today's time, farmers do both. So I think of him more of a gardener. He planted stuff, he did the produce side of farming. Whereas Abel, he was the herdsman, he worked with the animals. So one day they both presented God with an offering. Cain gave some, and then Abel gave some from the firstborn in their fruit. Now, God approved Abel's offering. He was like, "Good job, Abel. I'll take it. Thank you." Whereas with Cain, he was like, could have did better. And what did this do? This made Cain mad. So what happens when you hold anger inside? It just grows, right? So God was like, Cain, why are you mad? Like, if you want me to approve it, do better. Some people just can't take correction. But so then, Abel, he's just talking to Cain like ain't nothing happened, and Cain was still mad. What did Cain do? He struck his brother and he killed them. So, with that said, I mean, that's the part that everybody knows. God did the offering, or they did the offering to God. God approved one, not the other. The other got mad, killed his brother. For what? When he could have just learned from him. So then, this is when sarcasm was introduced in the Bible. And I'm not going to say I'm here for it like I am with Peter and Paul, because this sarcasm wasn't even called for. So after Cain killed Abel, God was like, Cain, where's your brother? And here goes Cain. I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? Sounding like a true older sibling. That's literally what older siblings do. Trust me, I know I have a sister, but sorry, that part is it's hilarious to me. It is. But yeah, so Cain replies, I don't know, I'm not my brother's keeper, or am I my brother's keeper is the way that he worded it. And God was like, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. That's the second time God asked a rhetorical question. Remember the punishment? Adam, where are you? God knew where Adam was, just like now he knew what Cain had did. Love rhetorical questions because you ain't even got to answer. You ain't even got to answer them. All right. So then, so this is when I give y'all a reminder. Cain is a gardener. He works the produce of the ground. Listen to this punishment, y'all. So now you are cursed. Oh, scripture. This is Genesis chapter 4, verse 11. I'm reading from the New King James Version right now. So now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. A fugitive and a vagabond you shall be on the earth. Message version. Okay. 10 to 12. Same chapter. God said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is calling to me from the ground. From now on, you'll get nothing but curses from this ground. You'll be driven from this ground that has opened its arm to receive the blood of your murdered brother. You'll farm this ground, but it will no longer give you its best. You'll be a homeless wanderer on earth. Y'all, that's another repeat performance on God's part, because think back to Eve's punishment. I'm going to intensify the pain of your labor. And he also said, your desire will be for your husband and only your husband. But if y'all recall, that's what got them in trouble to begin with, was her desires, because she desired the tree. It was desirable to make one wise. That ain't what God said. That was one too many desires, Eve, but we ain't gonna talk about you. And now God is punishing the gardener. I call him a gardener. It don't call him that. It calls him like a farmer or a ground tiller. It calls him other words, but to me, he's just a gardener. He does gardening, because gardening, it can be like vegetables, fruits, plants, all the things. So God is basically saying where he is right now, which is probably somewhere near his parents, he ain't getting nothing from the ground. So how is he gonna eat? It's not just about what his ability can do, it's about what his ability was able to do for him. If he's the grower of produce, and now this section of the earth is just like hard pass, you get nothing from me now. How this man gonna eat? How his family gonna eat? How his mom and daddy gonna eat? Y'all see where I'm going with this? So his punishment, I feel like, I may be wrong, but I feel like it affected more than just him. My personal opinion. But also, but listen to this though. This is the mercy of our God while also still being strict. So I'm gonna read from the Message version from verse 13 to verse 15. Okay. Cain said to God, my punishment is too much. I can't take it. You throw me off the land and I can never again face you. I'm a homeless wanderer on earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. God told him, no. Anyone who kills Cain will pay for it 7 times over. God put a mark on Cain to protect him so that no one who met him would kill him. Now, when I first read that, my mercy motivated heart was just like, oh, God's protecting him. But then I sat and talked to my apostle, because I was wondering, at first my question was, is the mark that God put on him is the mark that they reference in Revelations? But he told me it's not, because in Genesis, it's not a physical mark. It's just when people would meet Cain, they got this vibe that they just wanted to stay away. Like you know how when you meet somebody and they just give you this bad feeling and you're just like, never mind, like that. Like it was a feeling. It wasn't like a physical mark on him. So, but back to what I was saying. When I first read that, I was like, oh, he's protecting Cain, he's making sure Cain doesn't get hurt while out here. But then the way my apostle explained it is, that's technically worse. Because could you imagine like killing your brother in rage and then you calm down? And now you got all this time on the earth because ain't nobody killing you. You got all this time on the earth to think about what you did. And now you got to deal with your own emotions. In my now educated opinion, I personally believe that's worse than death. Like I mentioned earlier, I have an older sister, and no, I don't think about killing my sister, y'all. So don't do that. I love my sister. But I can't imagine being so mad about something and then killing her, and then not getting the death penalty, having to sit in jail just thinking about it. Just thinking about what I've done, what I did when I was mad, when I was angry. And I honestly don't like how that feels. I really don't. So, yeah, that's Cain and Abel. And, spoiler alert, they get another brother. That brother is the lineage of Jesus. So, I mean, in the end, everybody wins. But, whew, that is the story of the first murder in the Bible. Because that's chapter 4, y'all. Now, Another thing that I learned that I loved about Sunday school was when we took these stories from the Bible and we just, how can I use that today? Like, it's January 2023. How can I use that? What happened so many years ago? Like, that's BC, that's before Christ, right? So, this is when we talk about the messages. Now, the messages that I give are not the only messages that you can get. It's just the message that some of the messages that I got. And the first message is anger. That's the number one. Anger. That is a very powerful emotion, because I'm not saying don't be mad. I'm not saying don't be like angry about something, because at the end of the day, it's an emotion. You're supposed to feel your emotions, but don't let your emotions control you. Like, when I think of anger, I honestly think of alcohol. Like, there's nothing, like, if you take a little sip here, a little sip there, there's nothing wrong with that. But what happens when you get drunk and you're, out in public and you're acting crazy and you're not yourself when you're acting that way? I feel like anger is the exact same way. It's okay to be mad. Sometimes you deserve anger. Just don't let that emotion make you do something you're going to later regret. Like, it's just like any emotion. Like, you can have an emotion that causes you to do stuff that you truly didn't mean to do. So what we don't want to do is let our anger control us, because your emotions is your choice. Now, you got to work on your mindset to control your emotions, but at the end of the day, what we don't want is to let our emotions control us, because, they're our emotions. We should be the ones in control. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, because it's not. Just being honest, it's not. But at the same time, we don't want to be the victim of our emotions, because you can do a lot of things when you're mad and you don't even realize it. Like, never in my life have I blacked out, and nor do I want to. I don't want to get to the point where I'm so mad about something that I can't control what I'm doing. That was lesson one. Lesson two is, even though she wasn't a main character in the story, another lesson is Eve. Now, like I mentioned earlier, her punishment was that her pain during labor will increase, and she'll desire her husband, So, but what was her mantra when she was created? It was to be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. Her punishment that she got from what she did didn't stop her from doing what God told her to do. She still had kids. Through the pain, through it all, she still had kids. That's a lesson. But especially given the fact that the punishment was her own fault, because the lesson that I learned from Eve personally is the devil is the most cunning animal of the land. I ain't finna try to go tit for tat with him by myself. No, gone. Bye. A tutelar, all the adios, all the languages. I don't care how many I got to say bye to you. Bye. And then a third lesson is, if God doesn't approve your offering, what's stopping you from just giving another offering? Like, it's easy when reading the Bible and you see what happened to just be like, oh, well, he could have just gave a better offering. Abel gave firstborn and fat. He just gave some produce. It's easy to see that when you're reading it. So, but when you're in the moment, if you already got it, it's easier to do it when you're in the moment as well. So that's the three main lessons that I got from Genesis chapter 4. And Also, if you keep reading after verse 16 or 16 and on, you see Cain still had a wife. He still had kids. They wasn't the best of kids, but they were still kids. So that's a lesson for another day because Enoch, he is daddy's son. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. So I hope you enjoyed this first lesson of Sunday School Stories, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.